Chris Paul has made his decision, and it's a return to the Los Angeles Clippers. What did this
Chris Paul just did the unthinkable. After nearly 2 decades of orchestrating teams across the NBA, he's headed back to where it all changed, the Los Angeles Clippers. But this time, it's different. It's not Lob City. It's not Blake Griffin. It's not DeAndre Jordan. It's James Harden. Yes, that James Harden. The man he once couldn't coexist with is now the teammate he's reuniting with. And just like that, the NBA's most unexpected reunion has arrived. But this isn't just a nostalgic signing. It's a calculated move, with massive implications for the entire league. For years, the thought of Chris Paul donning a Clippers jersey again was laughable. His 2011 to 2017 run in LA was filled with highlights, heartbreaks, and locker room friction. The infamous Lob City era promised so much, yet delivered nothing but playoff collapses and finger-pointing. When Paul left for Houston, it felt final. He and the Clippers had unfinished business, but both moved on. So to see CP3 sign with the same franchise he once clashed with, it's not just surprising, it's symbolic. This isn't just a homecoming, it's a statement. Chris Paul is coming back to rewrite the ending. Here's where things get even crazier. Chris Paul and James Harden once shared a locker room in Houston, and it did not end well. The friction was visible. On the court, they bumped heads over ball dominance. Off the court, they reportedly couldn't stand each other. After just 2 seasons, CP3 was shipped off, and Harden made it clear they were never compatible. So why now? Why would Paul choose to reunite with a player he once had zero chemistry with? According to sources, the tension between them has cooled. They've matured. And with both chasing the same thing, a ring, they're willing to bury the past for one last run. But make no mistake, the scars from Houston haven't vanished. They've just been buried beneath urgency. Of all the possible NBA reunions, this might be the most bizarre. Chris Paul and James Harden, 2 future Hall of Famers, 2 alpha guards, 2 strong personalities, are teaming up again. But this time in Los Angeles. On paper, it looks brilliant. One of the greatest playmakers joining forces with one of the most unstoppable scorers. But anyone who remembers their time in Houston knows that this pairing comes with baggage. When Paul was traded to the Rockets in 2017, expectations were sky high. People said it was the most dangerous backcourt the league had ever seen. And at first, it looked promising. They came this close to knocking off the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. But behind the scenes, it was a ticking time bomb. Chris Paul, the intense floor general who demands structure, accountability, and precision. James Harden, the laid-back offensive genius who thrives in isolation and does things his way. It didn't take long for their philosophies to clash. They argued during timeouts. They disagreed on late-game decisions. CP3 would reportedly criticize Harden for lazy defense. Harden, in turn, hated being micromanaged. After just 2 seasons, the relationship collapsed. Harden wanted Paul gone, and he got his wish. The Rockets shipped Paul to OKC, and Harden got Russell Westbrook instead. The message was clear. These two weren't meant to coexist. So how did they go from awkward exit to headline reunion? Time. That's the difference. Both men have aged. Both have failed multiple times to reach the NBA mountaintop. Harden bounced from Houston to Brooklyn to Philly, chasing a ring and finding nothing but chaos. Paul, meanwhile, made a finals appearance in Phoenix but never sealed the deal. They've both come close enough to taste it, only to have it ripped away. According to insiders, that mutual hunger, that unfinished business, is what brought them back together. Sources say Harden was the first to extend the olive branch, reportedly telling Clippers execs he's 100% on board with bringing CP3 in. Paul, for his part, had serious hesitations at first, but was ultimately swayed by the bigger picture. Legacy. He knows this is likely his final shot, and if teaming up with an old rival is what it takes to chase that ring, so be it. The reunion isn't built on friendship, it's built on necessity. There's no promise this will be smooth. In fact, the past says it won't be. But with everything on the line, Paul and Harden are putting egos aside, for now. Whether it works or blows up in spectacular fashion, that's the story we're all about to witness. Paul had options, real ones. The Spurs wanted a veteran mentor for their young core. The Lakers saw him as a stabilizing force off the bench. Even retirement rumors swirled after his brief stint with the Warriors ended in disappointment. But the Clippers? They weren't the highest bidder. So what pulled him back? Word is Kawhi Leonard made the call himself. He wanted CP3's leadership, his control, his hunger. Sources close to the team claim Paul was promised something no other team offered: full control of the offense and the backing of stars who trust him. For a player who spent years being doubted, that meant everything. And now, the point guard is home again, on his own terms. Before this move, the Clippers were a dark horse. Dangerous, but inconsistent. Now, they're legitimate title contenders. Chris Paul brings more than just playmaking. He brings accountability. With Harden and Kawhi, he doesn't have to carry the scoring load. Instead, he becomes the orchestrator, the steady hand that this team has desperately needed. Vegas moved fast. Odds for the Clippers winning it all jumped overnight. Rival coaches took notice. Paul's ability to read defenses, slow down chaos, and make late-game decisions might be the very thing the Clippers lacked in years past. For the first time in a while, LA's other team feels like the real threat in the West. But here's the kicker. Paul doesn't have to be an all-star to move the needle. He just has to be himself. A 10-point, 9-assist game from CP3 can shift the entire flow of a playoff series. A timely steal, a momentum-swinging assist, a defensive rotation that stops a run before it starts. Those are the margins where championships are won, and Chris Paul lives in those margins. So yes, the Clippers were dangerous before, but now they're calculated, disciplined, deadly. This signing doesn't just change the odds, it changes the identity. And for the first time in a long time, the Clippers aren't just a team with potential, they're a team with purpose.
On paper, this roster looks terrifying. Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Bradley Beal all on the same squad? It's a fantasy lineup straight out of NBA 2K. But the reality is more complex. These are 4 ball-dominant players, all used to controlling tempo, making plays, and being the guy. So the obvious question looms, how in the world does Chris Paul fit into this crowded offense? Let's start with the basics. CP3 isn't the explosive scorer he once was, but his basketball IQ is still elite. He doesn't need to take 15 shots a game. He doesn't need to dominate the ball for 20 seconds. What he does need is structure, and that's exactly what he'll bring. With so many scoring options around him, Paul's true value lies in his ability to organize chaos. He turns talented individuals into a functioning unit. He slows the game down when it gets sloppy. He elevates others by knowing exactly where they need the ball.
Kawhi Leonard is arguably the best mid-range assassin in the league. Beal is lethal curling off screens or spotting up. Harden, when engaged, is still an elite shot creator. The Clippers don't need CP3 to score. They need him to direct traffic, and there's no one better in that role. If anything, his unselfish style might finally free Harden to play off ball again, something he thrived at during his brief stint in Brooklyn next to Kyrie and KD. But make no mistake, egos will be tested. Who's taking the final shot? Who's bringing the ball up in crunch time? Will Paul be okay deferring to Harden even when the offense stalls? Will Beal accept fewer touches? The Clippers coaching staff has a delicate puzzle to solve, and one misstep could derail the chemistry before it even starts. Still, there's a version of this team, if they buy in, that could be deadly. CP3 as the floor general, Kawhi as the two-way killer, Harden and Beal as interchangeable flamethrowers. It's a volatile mix, no doubt. But if they find the balance, they won't just be dangerous, they'll be unstoppable. Time is the enemy. Chris Paul is 39, Harden's in his mid-30s. Kawhi and Paul George have missed more playoff games than they've played in recent years. The Clippers aren't just building for the future, they're betting everything on right now. This is their one-year window, their last dance. It's ring or ruin. The roster is stacked, but one injury, one ego flare-up, or one off-court issue could unravel the whole thing. The margin for error is razor thin, and everyone in that locker room knows it. This isn't a rebuild. This is a desperate, all-in gamble. And if it fails, it might be the final chapter for all three stars. But not everything is sunshine. There's still tension beneath the surface. Harden isn't exactly known for keeping things drama-free, and Paul's leadership style can be, well, intense. The two once clashed over control of the offense, body language, even effort. While public statements have been optimistic, insiders suggest the Clippers have built safeguards into Paul's contract, reportedly including strict playing time guidelines and expectations around role clarity. Translation? They're not taking any chances. The team wants structure, not another implosion. And with Paul's no-nonsense demeanor, any signs of dysfunction will be dealt with quickly. But make no mistake, this reunion is walking on eggshells. The NBA world lit up. LeBron James reposted a photo of Paul in a Clippers jersey with one word: respect. Steph Curry, who battled CP3 countless times, said it's fitting he goes out where it all started. Meanwhile, Doc Rivers, his old coach, said, "I never thought I'd see the day." Then there's the sports media. Skip Bayless called it desperate. Stephen A. Smith called it potentially historic. Fans, they're divided. Some are thrilled, others are skeptical. But one thing's for sure, no one's ignoring it. Chris Paul's final act has the whole league watching. In many ways, this is poetic. Chris Paul returning to the Clippers, Harden back by his side, and Kawhi Leonard hoping to lead them all to the promised land. It feels like destiny. Or maybe a final desperate swing at legacy. For CP3, this isn't just another contract. It's a chance to finish what he started, to silence the critics, to rewrite his ending. And for the Clippers, it's either the birth of a championship squad or the collapse of a dream. Either way, the NBA will never be the same after this. For Chris Paul, this isn't just another team switch. This is destiny, served cold, years in the making. He's coming back to the place where it all nearly came together, but never quite did. Back to the Clippers, a franchise that once built everything around him and watched it crumble piece by piece. Back to a city where he was once a king without a crown. But this time, the crown isn't a dream, it's the expectation. This isn't the Lob City era. There's no Blake Griffin catching lobs, no DeAndre Jordan patrolling the paint. This is a new chapter. Hardened by age, tempered by failure, and fueled by unfinished business. Paul doesn't have 5 years to figure it out. He doesn't even have 2. This is it, the last ride. And with James Harden by his side again, the story becomes even more serious. Former rivals, former enemies, now forced to trust one another in a pressure cooker that could explode at any moment. Kawhi Leonard is a mystery. Bradley Beal is a wild card. Harden is, well, Harden. And CP3? He's the glue. He's the chess master trying to hold together a locker room full of combustible talent, egos, and expectations. It's a nearly impossible task. But if anyone can do it, it's the man who spent his entire career doing the impossible and still getting overlooked. The truth is, this move is bigger than basketball. It's about legacy, redemption, closure. Chris Paul has worn nearly every jersey imaginable, mentored the next generation, and chased the ring like a ghost in a haunted career. He's been betrayed by injuries, humbled by heartbreak, and still, he's standing. At 39, he's not just playing for a title, he's playing for his place in history. Because if this works, if the Clippers finally break through and lift that trophy, it won't just rewrite Chris Paul's story, it will rewrite the Clippers' entire identity. From cursed to crowned, from punchline to powerhouse. And if it fails, then this will be remembered as the final roll of the dice, the last attempt at greatness that came just a second too late. So now, the clock is ticking. Every possession matters. Every moment could be the turning point, and the whole NBA world is watching. Will Chris Paul go out a champion or a cautionary tale? That answer is coming, and it's coming fast.